Hello, guys, and welcome on back. Now, last time we left off, we were talking about trees. Trees have been finalized, they're looking great. I've added two more trees, two more rocks, using the methods and just creating them. We'll see them later when we return back to them for texturing and leaves on the trees. To talk about leaves, I'm kind of segueing into creating grass because I want this grove of a forested area, this arena location that the player is going to be fighting the enemy wolves and learning how the fight mechanics work and all that stuff. I really want to make sure that we have a very good leaf model in there. A lot of times games don't really use a leaf model. They could use a leaf plane or just a flat texture on the ground that looks like leaves. I'm going with the model route of it, going with something that is very minimalistic, doesn't have a lot of detail, but when textures are applied to it and you see it move in the game with game engine physics, it actually looks like grass. And there's a way where I just make this one little grass model that's a collection of, you see these blades of grass. Yes, they're all standing at attention, ready to go. I just created one simple grass shape, really. And you can see I've just added very few divisions, just enough that it holds the appearance of a blade of grass. Because later, when I'm in the game engine, I can simulate it from the bottom up to wave in the wind. And a lot of game engines get that wrong too. They have it wave all over the place, so like floats across like this, like it's waves across water. And you don't want that because the bottom of the grass stays stuck in the ground. Only the top's moving. The bottom never floats above the ground. And so many games do that. If you're able to like army crawl, you'll see like tiny little blades of grass just like hovering just an inch above the ground, floating in and out. And we don't want that. So we have these blades of grass which have perfect geometry for me to simulate movement, and I added a minor curve to them and a bend inwards because a lot of grass blades have just these itty bitty curves even when you pluck it out of the ground, and it's could be looking real straight due to the small stalk that it has running up its spine. There's still like some curvature in it naturally that it just has trying to grow towards the sun or be open to the sun. So it curves in certain ways to expose the spine and to expose the what would you call it? The membranes of the grass, I guess. But that's all sorts of sciencey stuff that we don't need to talk about. But we kind of do in some regards because we have to understand science in the real world versus science in the video game world because we kind of push physics to be our play toy, our toy. We kind of push it around and make it do weird things. So all I'm doing right now is just randomly creating a pattern here. I don't want it to be a pattern that is noticeable. I'm just kind of placing these blades of grass, rotating them in weird ways, just so that I have something that when the player sees it, they'll have a feeling of just nature taking shape here. I don't want the player to really know what's going on, not really see any of these at like straight degrees, just enough randomization that it looks natural, I should say. And from above, that looks pretty natural. I like that shape. And what I can do with this now is you can see grass when it grows. When it's new grass, it grows weird like this, where there's just some blades here and there, and there's these weird gaps and openings, and that's what I'm wanting it to look like. Is if I want to create something sparse, I can just lay this out and not have to worry about it being really luscious and beautiful. But what you can do with this is if I select all of these, and let's go ahead, let's do a quick save here because just want to make sure that I don't mess anything up here when I show it off to you guys. Grass. Okay, saved. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm going to join all of these together. So now when you see it, when I add multitudes of this grass texture and we have it being rotated in different ways and it's all bunched up together, when the player sees this, they're not going to recognize the pattern. It looks like just a whole bunch of grass now all in one section. And if we continue to grow this, as you can see, the pattern that I made is instantly lost. It looks like a lawn right now. From the top, you can see, okay, it's all very horizontal and straight. Everything is right there at eye level. So that is what I do need to break up. We don't want all of this to look like it's at one eye level. So to do that, we just have to go through, get rid of grass models. And what I'm actually going to do is just open up my previous project. There we go. So what we're going to do to fix that now is simply let's select all of these. Whoops. Go into edit mode. And in the game engine, there is a way to have it do this part for me, where it'll adjust heights and change up the variations in the grass. But we don't have that particular. What is it doing? I don't like what it's doing there. We don't have that ability here right now while we're modeling it. So what we want to do is just randomly grow and shrink the height of the grass. And there's no real rhyme or reason as to what pattern I'm going for here. I'm just kind of going around creating shapes and breaking up the what am I breaking up? The tops, really. I'm just breaking this up because we want blades of grass that grow at different lengths. Say one blade of grass got more light than the others and things like that, which is natural to have happen in the environment. This one we're going to make it belong. It's going to be a tall one. Why not? We'll have a tall blade of grass. I want another short one. I feel like this one could be shorter too. And it's fine that some of these have gotten to be a little malformed, because that just adds to the randomness. Okay, see. Now that looks a lot better. Now I bet when I end up copying this shape around and having it placed in the environment, there won't be any clear shape going on. They'll be all over the place, and you'll see a wave happen above the top instead of that flat ridge line. Now, in the Unreal Engine, when I place this down as foliage, there is a way that I can tell Unreal to randomize the heights, go from anywhere from a height of 1 to 5, or a scale of 1 to 5, something like that. It'll randomize that for me, which will create a very interesting appearance. So now that I do have all these selected though, I want to head back in object mode. I want to make sure I'm selecting my centermost leaf, blade of grass, not a leaf, blade of grass here when I go through and join these. Because now with that as the center point for this, when we duplicate it, the other one will rotate around the center, which is exactly what we want. Now, just to test it, you can see with the rotation that I've added in there, from any viewpoint, it really doesn't look like it's the same pattern still being repeated. It still has its random variation of growth. Maybe the tall guy sticks out a little bit, but I think with the Unreal Engine, that'll help alleviate the tall ones sticking out. But it's just, there's a tall blade of grass, and it's always the one that you want to pull out and then whistle through and things like that. So fun things. I remember those times. I don't know if you guys do. I do. I could never do it. My sister could. I couldn't. Or was it my sister? It was one of her friends that could. History. And with that said and done, this is my grass. It is grass. It is our static mesh for grass. And now when I use this in the Unreal Engine, I'll have a grass texture that when I even grow it in size, now of course now it looks weird, but when you see it in the game engine actually working, this scale will actually start to look like very tall blades of meadow type grass. And I'll even be able to change the texture of it, because most meadows either have meadows don't really have that very dark green grass that you see on your lawn outside your house. Meadows usually have grass that is more lime green and yellowed in tone, and that's just because of the grass not getting that much sunlight or water in a forest, because all that water is being pulled to the trees and the bushes around the blades of grass, that where that meadow is just so happens to be enough sunlight and water happening there that it can grow tall, but it doesn't get enough nourishment to turn that really dark green that we see grass being. So I'll have a pretty fun texture to create for doing that. Something that is going to be able to work as both my grass texture and leaf texture if I can get it to work that way. Might not, because I'll need a different alpha for the shapes. Darn. we'll see what we can do. But with that said, this is going to help us in creating our leaves, because I'm not going to create individual leaves, but I will need to create a plane for the leaves to sit on, and I'll have twigs drawn into it. It'll be a hand-drawn texture with leaves and twigs. And then what I have to do is, in a lot of video games, they usually just use that leaf plane to create their leaves and just scatter that around the tree and say, okay, done. That could work for my game, but I also want to make sure that I try both methods of creating leaves for a tree. The other method would be to still have those leaf planes, but have a second model that is very low poly that will act as kind of a bushel of leaves, and then you take that and scatter it around your tree. Because a lot of the times trees aren't these just twigs of leaves that just sprout all over the place. There are giant bushes on a long trunk. So the top of a tree should look more like an actual bush and not just these flat planes intersecting on each other. Because if the player is very picky, they'll notice that, and it'll just look weird, and it could um, break that belief of realism in the game. And I don't know if I need that realism or not, but I'm going to try both methods and see which one creates the best leaf effect for the game. But with that said, hope you guys enjoy these videos. I'm thinking of adding a new piece to the channel, something more fun, more entertaining for people who maybe don't get too into the creations of video games and want to learn more about how a video game could have created something. So it might be some gameplay videos where I talk about games that have really gorgeous graphics or a very beautiful vista that will help me to explain what I'm shooting for in my game, things like that. So stay tuned, stick around, and I'll see you guys in the next video.